Hello, today I will show you the painting Eldar Falcon. Before we begin painting the Eldar Falcon, it's necessary to smooth out the surface of the wings. Unfortunately, it's probably the oldest model made by Games Workshop, and factory template seems pretty fatigued. To smooth out the surface, I used 800 grain sandpaper. After base coating with white spray, it's time for primal color. For that purpose, I used blood red. After primary color dries a bit, it's time for the highlights. You can see the color test on the piece of paper. I used orange and yellow. Here is model after first layer of highlighting. After paint dries, it's time for satin varnish. This increases the contrast, which is why we can now see stronger orange highlights on the wings. While waiting for the main hull dry, I drilled some holes in what looks like exhaust pipes, which due to technical reasons are filled with plastic. Now the hull is dry and it's time to apply the first layer of shading. In the areas around the air intakes, I will add dark brown layer of burnt umber. I used the same paint to apply some shading in the hollow parts of the hull. This is what the model looks like with the first layer of shading. Then I applied a secondary layer in a turret socket. I used a scour to gently smooth out the surface of the paint job. It's a necessary step if you intend to lay more than 5 coats of paint. We remove the dust accumulated from the process of painting. Afterwards, I lacquered the top hull and started working on engine nozzles. As a primary color for those, I used gunmetal and highlighted with steel color. I decided to paint the bottom of Falcon with shades of black and grey. For shading I used Codex Grey. I airbrushed it on the most exposed surfaces. Then I highlighted it with Fortress Grey. That's what the highlighted lower hull looks like now. I decided to keep the lower part of the turret in the same color scheme as lower hull, shaded black to the grey. I finished the edges with the lining. Lining is easiest done by rubbing the side of the brush with the moderated thick paint against the edges of the detail. It's time to paint the weapons. After priming them black, I made the grey highlights. I decided to paint 5 rings on the barrel. They were applied by the tank crew to mark their won engagements against other vehicles. I covered the barrel with thin strips of masking tape to do that. After applying the masking tape, I painted exposed area white. The next step is a wash. There are 2 ways of applying wash. The first method is using ready-made washes and pouring them into detail of the model. The second method, which I prefer, is done by preparing your own long drying washes. That provides you time to work on the model. I covered all of black elements of the model with wash. After it's partially dried, I started gently removing it by dragging a brush soaked with alcohol in order to achieve realistic looking stains and dirt smudges which can appear on fast moving vehicles. When dry, I masked wings with the tape. I left exposed 2 strips on each wing. I painted strips with the Kiosk black paint. When the black paint dried, I highlighted with Codex Grey upper edges of armor plates. When paint is dry, I remove masking tape. Meanwhile, I painted cockpit with dark green color, washed it, and painted pilot body. After assembling cockpits, I glued them to the hull and turret. Next step is applying decals. On the surface grounded with gloss varnish, I apply decals with Decal Fix from Humbrol. I tinted cockpit canopies with green transparent paint. Then I masked it and airbrushed it. When part was dry, I removed mask from canopy. Cockpit canopy should be glued with transparent resin. Using plastic glue makes very visible all mistakes. Canopy with contact of plastic glue immediately loses its transparency. Using super glue is also poor idea. This glue may leave a white residue similar to the frost. I started final stage of assembling the model. This is finished model. Thank you for watching. Please rate, vote and subscribe.